Why is graphene a better thermal and electrical conductor than graphite? So before we tackle this question, let's think about the structures of both graphene and graphite. So let's start with graphite, and in this picture here it is B, that is graphite, so this one. If we have a look, we've got layers of carbon atoms, so we know these little black dots here represent carbon. And the other thing we can notice about these forces, so we've got these strong bonds between these carbon atoms, and they're called covalent bonds. And then we have these weaker forces between the layers, and they are called weak intermolecular forces. Now if we have a look at graphene, which is over here, what we can see is that it's effectively one layer of graphite. And that's exactly how we define graphene. It's a single atom thick, so we know it's only one atom, single atom thick, there's no layers, just one layer of graphite. It's made of carbon atoms. And then the other thing we need to think about is conductivity. Now why do both graphite and graphene conduct electricity? And that's because of this covalent bonding. If we have a look at each carbon atom, so let's take this one, we can see it forms 3 bonds. But in the periodic table, carbon has an atomic number of 6. That means in its first shell it has 2 electrons, and in its second and outer shell it has 4 electrons. So carbon should form 4 bonds because it has 4 electrons ready to make bonds, or to share bonds because we're just thinking about covalent bonding. But in graphite and in graphene, we can see as well there are only 3 bonds. That isn't happening. So what that means is that every carbon atom has 1 electron delocalized or free to move around the structures of both graphite and graphene. And it's those delocalized electrons that are able to move and carry a current or a charge through the structure of both graphite and graphene. That means that they can both conduct thermal and electrical energy. But why is graphene a better conductor of electricity? Now that's all to do with resistance. If we have a look at graphite, we can see that these electrons have to travel through the layers as well as in a layer. Whereas in graphene, there's no layers that electrons have to traverse across. They can just go along the one layer that's there, so there's no resistance. And that means that graphene is a much better conductor of electricity than graphite.